All right, there we are. After the beat, we are back. YouTube exclusive. Luke Thomas here, host of the program. Brian Campbell, Iceman, Chuck Mindenhall, the man in the hat. We are back. We have taken them tweets of yours using the hashtag #TheMMABeat. I have to tell you, I have been a little bit underwhelmed with the tweets the last couple of weeks for two different reasons. I mentioned this before. Of course, I appreciate everyone's submission, but on the one hand, and I can't breathe, so I got to take my Askren out. I have a nasal appointment for surgery next week, so we'll see how it goes. But they often repeat things, or like they cover stuff that you know we're going to get to. It's like, what'd you guys make of the Conor McGregor situation? It's like, well, probably.
We need Jed going, what do you guys think of BJ Penn versus Uriah Faber? And then we'd be like, oh my
right,
God,
it's a little different. Or it's just like totally inane. Like someone was like, what's your favorite meat to eat? And I'm like, I'm not sure whether there's a there. All right, but I've picked the best ones. We appreciate all the submissions. Keep sending them using the hashtag #TheMMABeat. Let's get this going. All right, Brian, do you think the upcoming One Championship card is the biggest in the promotion's history? What are your favorite memories from One?
Hey.
Favorite memories,
top
like
10,
it's some kind of storied experience.
You need to narrow it down. So top 10 moments.
When they signed Sexayama and I popped.
This is sort of like asking, what are your favorite memories from sitting at a red light?
Look,
like,
I'm really excited for One. I had Eddie Demetrius Sage on my podcast. I've been talking about One a lot. I did not know Eddie Alvarez was fighting this weekend, even though I interviewed him 2.5 weeks ago, until this morning.
You know, we always have the most plugged-in media members here.
No, and I don't know how that happened. I don't know how that happened, but
There's too much MMA is the problem.
And that's a problem. So am I excited? Is this their biggest card? No and maybe. And what's my favorite One moment? I don't know. I like the Metallica video. I don't really have one moments, all right?
I mean, I don't have one. Go ahead.
No, I certainly don't have one.
This is clearly their biggest.
Oh, that time Askren got poked in the eye.
No, it's pretty clearly their biggest
I was like,
card.
I mean, what could come close? I mean, the Askren fights, I used to tune in for those. There's been very few in the States that you're going to care enough about to stay up in the weird hours and to watch them. But in terms of that, yes, I think this is the biggest one. You know, I mean, it's even been compelling to see Demetrius Johnson with the One logo, insignia, or whatever behind him, and operating with whole different, different operators and everything else with different handlers. Very strange to watch, but it's kind of cool, man. And I don't know. I almost have to reserve judgment until you watch the whole product and then get a better sense of it. But to me, this one has by far the biggest buzz.
So this will be streaming live, correct?
Only on BR Live in the United States. You got to pay for this.
It's an app.
One.
Oh,
it's
you have to pay.
Oh, yeah, it's a streaming service.
hey.
Now, they might have the same bit where you can sign up and then cancel again, but you have to pay for this one.
So many services.
Yeah, I mean, newsflash, I'm not paying for that. But here's the thing. It's clearly their biggest event, at least from a Western perspective, probably from their own perspective too. Remember, John Nash did an article on Bloody Elbow where he got access to their financial documents, and they were not even close to making any of this kind of money that they claim. However, what is also true is they ended up getting nearly $200 million verified in venture capital funding. Then they made all those signings, not merely on the talent side. Remember, they hired Misha Tate to be VP.
Right.
And they did this huge tour. This is the first event building off of that. Now, they've always had a lot of their own Asian resources. Shinya Aoki's on this card. A number of other players are on this card who have been. Edward Folyang is on this card. They are building off of that, and then they're debuting some of these shiny new toys that they got. So to me, it's like pretty clearly from that perspective, it's the first one on this new streaming service. So yeah, it's the biggest. It's just I don't know what to make of One. It's like I have total respect for Matt Hume, Rich Franklin, Misha Tate. I find Chatri Sityodtong to be a very smart guy, but I think he dodges tough interviews. I'll just be candid about that. I think he kind of goes to places where people don't ask a lot of questions about their finances or about their weight cutting.
Or about promoting Roy Jones against Vitor Belfort.
Well, he answered that. So they clearly have something going on. It's just always hard to tell exactly what the truth is. So the card looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. You're going to get to see maybe the best fighter in the universe go compete, but you are going to have to pay for it if you're in the United States. Now, I think overseas it's a little bit different.
This weekend, are you more apt to watch that or that triangular cage backyard brawl thing that Dad of 5000's commenting on?
I had no idea that was a real thing.
Oh, wow.
That's a real thing?
Yeah, it's bare knuckle combat inside a triangle cage, and it's.
They're not trying to give you any room. Just. I would probably watch one more than that, but I honestly I can't sign up for another streaming service. I'm not even trying to be flippant about it.
I can't cross any more of those.
It's like, dude, and they do show some NBA games on there, but you have to get like another tier inside the package. And then the other things that they show, it's like I think they show some Champions League. Okay, that's cool. I like that. But then it's like lacrosse. It's like your value add proposition for me at this point is not strong.
At least the zone you can get some Canelo, you know?
And you get Chilean soccer. Yay.
Oh, wow.
All right, next. I'm a big fan of Dom Cruz's commentary because of his analytical and inside knowledge when it comes to fighting. Which current UFC fighter not already employed as a commentator could you see as a great commentator? Chuck Mindenhall. By the way, in defense of Dom Cruz, I've seen a lot of people be like, his style is boring. It's like, yeah, but here's the thing. He says true and interesting things. I don't like, I'm not relying on Dom Cruz's jocularity to get me through a broadcast. I want to be informed, and I think he does that better than just about anybody.
I mean, it's a benefit to have him be as kind of serious-minded as he is, because the other guys can then be the comical side of that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of anybody that just stands out. I know I have talked, and you've probably talked to more guys because you've talked to them more analytically about fighting.
Yep.
But nobody really springs to mind.
Well, they said current fighters, so no Conor McGregor. Because while that's a joke,
Put the tweet up one more time.
Well, that's a joke. Wouldn't you think his personality would be phenomenal?
No, I think he'd be terrible for it.
Really?
Can I see the tweet one more time if you guys don't mind?
Because let's take a Roy Jones in boxing. It took him a while, but he became fantastic at it, despite being a little too cocky.
Here he goes. Which current UFC fighter? Yeah, current UFC fighter not already employed as a commentator.
Toughie.
Well, first of all, I would say Tyron Woodley.
Yeah.
Tyron Woodley's a great. Tyron Woodley was one of the best desk analysts that they have.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know how that would translate necessarily to the commentary booth.
I agree.
What about Ben Askren? Think you'd be able to do it?
I don't know. Here's the problem with Ben, because Ben is clearly smart and clearly analytical. Ben, if you're watching this, I bought your BJJ Fanatics wrestling DVDs, and I went through all of them. This is actually over the last week. I watched his entire. It's like a 10-volume series, or nearly. I watched all of them. So he is.
Nerd alert.
I know. What am I doing with my life? But in any event, he is clearly gifted. But I just wonder if he might get off like on the wrong foot, being like, if there's a welterweight fight, be like, look at these two bums. Or if there's a wrestling exchange, like these two guys honestly cannot wrestle.
What?
He might get into that kind of thing. You know?
Do you think there's room for that sort of entertainment in the booth, or does the booth have to be serious and technical?
You know, that's a great question, because here was the thing about that. So, do you guys remember when Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series in the first season, they had Faber and Snoop Dogg doing their whatever they called it?
That's extreme, just like Dennis Miller. On
Okay, that is extreme, but what I wound up, the fighters I saw, none of them got mad at Faber, but a lot of them got really mad at Snoop for basically doing what I would describe as talking like a fan. That is how fans talk. If you go to a bar, if you go to a sporting event, and you hear fans talk about a guy get knocked out, oh, he got knocked out, you know, blah, 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 blah. They're not saying the nicest things. It was probably uncomfortable to hear, but it wasn't unrepresentative of how the wider fan base talks about it. Now, the NBA has gone in a different direction, which is like players only. So the answer is, I do think there's more room for jocularity, and I think DC does the best job of combining jocularity and great insight. But I wonder if you got more outside of that, if the fans might rebel.
Jocularity is good, but irreverence and just mockery and things like that. If you get to those levels, I'm like, then it becomes something.
People got mad at Bisping on the Fox desk when he would trash talk a little with the fighters.
Yeah.
I loved it. It's entertainment.
Yeah. So for me, I think it really depends. I don't need that kind of stuff. I'm not going to say there's no room for it. I guess it really just depends on how someone navigated it. You know, I think the problem would end if you end up doing one and you neglect the other duties. Or if you end up doing one and you're good at it but not good enough to justify neglecting the other duties, like there's a lot of ways it could go wrong. So the answer is let's see who can craft that kind of space.
I wish Randy Couture was still working for the UFC. I know he's still calling fights, but
PFL,
I still think he's the best fighter analyst, maybe outside of a rising Dom Cruz right now. But
so to answer the question, like who's not been employed, the answer is I don't know, but I wonder if there's a female commentator who's not hired.
I was trying to think of one. You know, it's funny.
Julie Kedzie, who obviously was sitting out there.
Yeah. Guys like Dan Hardy and, Paul Felder, for instance, they found both these guys. And I'm not sure, I mean, you probably talked to these guys. I don't know if you talked to them before they got their gigs, but you knew that they were very smart.
Yep.
They were very articulate kinds of people. They'd done many different kinds of artistic pursuits that had nothing to do with MMA. MMA just happened to be where we discovered them, but Felder was like a thespian on the stage, and Hardy had done all kinds of stuff in the arts, like photography and everything else. I feel like those type of things, I don't know everybody's background, but I feel like those types of elements, when you have a bigger worldview, feed into, like something like that. You have to be able to employ a lot of different things and make yourself knowledgeable, not just the sport, but kind of the fan base, what they're thinking, everything.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as it seems. So those guys to seamlessly going in and do it is a big boon for the UFC. But I'm sure there are guys like that, but it's just tough to know when you talk to them as fighters. You know what I mean? As you talk to them as fighters, to really see that side of them, because they got to be a little bit.
And a lot of them don't. For example, I had Eugene Behrman on my radio show. He is the coach at City Boxing in New Zealand, so he's the coach of Adesanya and stuff. So he likes me and I like Eugene. This is in no way disparaging, but he actually told fighters who are coming on my show, he's like, careful, this guy's going to ask you about technique. Don't give any of our secrets away. He told me that on the air, so I'm not saying anything he didn't reveal. But he was like, I scouted you. You asked questions. So there's another part where even if you talk to them, they'll purposely hide it away.
Right.
Whereas if you get them in private, they might rattle it off. I had Anthony Pettis on my radio show earlier this week, and we spent 6 minutes talking about technique. I didn't know he had it in him like that. I was blown away by how good he was.
Surprising.
Because I think a lot of times these guys just suppress it. So it's hard to know.
To answer the spirit of that question real quick, I think Chris Weidman could become a sleeper because he was just a really bad interview when he initially won the championship. He was just sort of didn't have a lot to say. And if you've interviewed him in the past year when he's coming off of losses, he's more personal, introspective, I think that could be a potential guy who could really sort of break things down.
He has that nice combo of lean in, engaged on the material, but kind of likes to have a little fun. I mean, this is the guy who picks his nose on TV with John Vellante. You know what I mean? Like, they like to have a little fun.
Where he used to just be dude. He was just
That's
a
right.
dude.
Before he was like, that's the guy that beat Anderson Silva? There was like, the people were incensed because like this person, and then they got to know him, and I think that changed a little bit. Next. All right, table. Why does heavyweight rarely have any young champions? Every champion seems to be 34 years or plus.
That's a good point.
What do you think, guys?
Well, you got to lose in this sport a lot to get good at it. But this question is specifically heavyweight.
Heavyweight, yeah. It's got to be that a lot of these guys are recruited to go elsewhere, and then a lot of them decide. Like, for example, I had the NBA player whose name now escapes me. The one who
Royce White.
Yeah, Royce White.
Or Royce White, right? For you Brazilians.
If you're Brazilians, yes. I had him on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he had this sort of similar story, like the NBA thing. He made it there, and he's athletic, and it didn't work out. And then he walked into Greg Nelson's gym, and there you go.
And that's the same thing in American boxing right now. You don't.
Remember Seth Mitchell from Michigan State?
Exactly. Look at Deontay Wilder right now. He was a failed football and basketball player who wanted to play football at Alabama and took up boxing at 19. When you're a heavyweight and you're American, you're taking it. You're not growing up in this business. You're to become it.
There's very few guys who are like 19, 20 years old that are already big and into their bodies like that are fighting. I don't know why that is. Even when you go watch kind of regional shows, there aren't a lot of young heavyweights for whatever reason. So I don't know why.
Yeah, because as Bert Sugar used to say, you want to see the best American heavyweight boxers, they're playing linebacker for the Ravens. Because you're going to be pushed into a team sport where there's potential to make more money without as much damage. Because there's still that mindset in fighting, especially if you're a parent of a young child. I know things are changing with MMA becoming, across the board universal, but it's still that mindset of, well, why am I going to send my son into the fight game when he could go play soccer?
The other interesting part about this is, you guys probably didn't see this news, but weightlifting, remember when wrestling in the Olympics was nearly excommunicated and they had to make a bunch of changes and they got let back in? Olympic weightlifting had a similar problem, but with drug use. You want to talk about one of the sports that is just infested with drug use. It is Olympic weightlifting. So they were nearly axed from the Olympics, but the big announcement this week was that they got put into the 2024 Olympics. Anyway, point being is, if you look at the very best heavyweight and super heavyweight lifters, they're all from overseas. And you're like, why would the Georgians and the Iranians have the best lifters? Well, in part because those are bigger sports there. But what else are their heavyweight athletes going to do? They don't have a basketball program of note.
Yeah, they're not playing soccer.
They're not playing soccer. They're not going to play, obviously, American football. Yeah. They're going to get recruited for the things that those guys do. So it's like partly our best athletes aren't doing it. Partly we don't have the same kind of program that some of these other countries do. But when you see like 22-year-old Russian heavyweights, it's like, oh, right, because they're not getting siphoned off in the way we are here.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I was trying to think of anybody, but Francis Ngannou, I believe, was like one of the few guys who was like a big prospect that was still in his 20s, right? Like that was part of the reason he had a novelty to him, was that he was younger than And John Jones, I think that there's a big thing like for him to kind of graduate up to this level because he would be like an infusion of youth.
Okay, but John Jones is the best example.
Exactly.
He is a light heavyweight, and he did what he did. His two brothers played in the NFL, and they were heavyweights, Arthur and Chandler.
Well, John's like the failed athlete, oddball brother who was lost in his late teens.
Not the failed athlete. That's not true.
But still sort of like...
He wasn't cut out for American football, but he's not a failed athlete.
Because of the skinny legs.
He's actually one of the best athletes in the UFC.
Failed athlete means... in this case means failed team sport athlete.
Yes, that's true.
Where you have a path to college and you hope to
Yes. Okay, next. All right, boys. Which MMA fighter that you've interviewed or met do you think has the coolest life outside of their fighting?
Jeez.
Now, that's an interesting one. I'll be candid. I usually don't covet the lives of fighters, in part because, yes, they have wealth, but, dude, they're in the gym constantly. Yeah. They're dealing with injuries constantly. They're dealing with public scrutiny constantly. Man. So you might be able to, like, twist it to, like, which retired fighter or which, like, that kind of a thing. I would say St. Pierre's got a pretty great life.
Yeah.
I like his life a lot.
Yeah.
He's got some money. He's chill. He's got good friends. That seems all right.
A spot at the bar carved out for him.
But, like, for example, would I really want Mayweather's life? It's like, I wouldn't mind having Mayweather's money.
Right.
But I don't want his life.
Well, we're also talking about the fight game where, honestly, very few people come out unscathed, where you're...
Yeah.
I always use Sugar Ray Leonard as examples. Good-looking guy, still talks really well, still broadcasting, yet he even fought through a lot of depression and alcohol abuse afterwards. The fight game is really not set up for great endings.
No, it's not.
In that regard. And lives are usually crazy on the outside as well.
I know. Fans envy their lives. I'm like, yes, you would want their money, and fame can be fun.
Well, you'd want to be a badass, too. And there's chicks.
Okay, fine. But there's lots of ways to be a badass. It's like... I don't know, man.
What's his name? Gregor Gillespie?
Gregor Gillespie. King of fishing.
So there you go. Like a guy like that who basically has a whole different passion. Like those guys are always really interesting, right? Like he's always out there in his fun place, his safe place, like out there fishing. That's not a bad
Tim
life.
Kennedy's got an interesting life.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, all parts of it I don't know, but he's got a lot of other parts that are pretty interesting. You know who's got a great life is former MMA coach and still a black belt, the Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu founder, Dave Camarillo.
Yeah.
He travels the world teaching jiu-jitsu.
What about Luke Rockhold? I mean, the guy's like a model on the side.
That's the answer.
Yeah, but then he has to
flying around, going to the Super Bowl.
That's the answer. You nailed it.
Okay, but he's got to live in Florida. Ugh.
Well, you still live in California, but maybe he still wants
Cormier's got a pretty cool life because he's still a dad and a coach, but he makes good money and he's got some fame and.
If I could pick one man from 1 year, I'd pick 2013 TRT Belfort. That's the greatest superhero in fighting history. I would be that guy that year.
You overstate things a little.
I mean, just wear a mohawk and just spin wheel, kick people, knock them out cold. You'd be a hero in your country.
The cage. What did he do outside?
Rosie Sexton ended up having a career in academia. I don't know how cool that is, but I certainly envy that to a degree.
Yeah.
Who else is out there that has got a pretty interesting... who's the guy who retired early, the Ninja of Love? Remember his name? Remember him? He retired from brain concerns. God, he pursued a medical degree.
You don't mean Dustin Hazlett, right?
Honestly, if I could be tenured in some university teaching MMA studies, that would be perfect for me. That's all I would want. I would want nothing more.
Brian Stan always had a very, very rich life outside of fighting. I felt like, and even to this day.
Okay, but I'm not here to besmirch it. But the question was cool. Now to me.
Well, cool. Yes, cool. I mean,
so
he's
to me,
like James Bond.
Yeah, exactly. To me, he's a father. He's got kids. He is the American. He's Captain America for me. How cool that is, I guess Conor's got the coolest life.
I remember this is. I remember visiting Josh Koscheck for a piece for Fight Magazine, and
was this when he had the plane?
This was in Fresno. I don't know if he had a plane, but he had a Ferrari, and he had a huge place, and he was showing me around. And what's the guy's name? Dwayne Zinkin.
Yeah.
He was right there with him, and they're both driving their Ferraris around. And I was like, they were like the kings of Fresno. Now Fresno being what it is, but I was like, this is crazy. You live in this little town, but you kind of are like a god in Fresno. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember seeing his pool and all the things he had going on.
Cowboy Cerrone basically rides around
in that's a good
motorhome drinking beer and water skiing and getting into fights with civilians. It's
nothing wrong with that. That's a good way to live.
Wakeboarding, buying. He's always doing crazy.
So yeah, there's some answers, but in the end, I've always said this. I have total admiration for fighters. I've built my life around them. But I would not, even if I had the ability, I don't know that I would want to be one. And I don't have the choice because I can't be, but it's not for everybody. And I'm pretty sure it's not for me. So, next. Today is opening day. And I've always argued hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports. What do you think is the most difficult thing to do in all of sports. So if, Europeans might have a different perspective, but in American sports, they say the hardest thing to do is hit 300. So out of every 10 at bats, get a base hit out of 3.
Science thing about the amount of reaction time a major league hitter would actually have to pick up the ball and try to figure out what pitch it is and make a decision.
When was the last time you were in a batting cage? I went one not too long ago, and they were just throwing 55.
I know.
Which is
it's
nothing.
Ridiculous.
No, 65. And which is nothing. I mean, 65 is like a knuckleball in American baseball, and I couldn't believe how fast it was.
It's ridiculous.
I still think hitting a baseball at 300 is pretty hard.
That is very difficult. The one thing that's it's like you don't know how you would react. I always feel like getting punched in your face is really the hardest thing because you don't know how you react. There's certain people who realize it very difficult. They break a bone in their face or something happens to them in a fight, and they have to understand on the fly if they have it in them.
Brock Lesnar.
To go past that, which seems to me like this self-discovery that's playing out in real time, which is a very strange thing that I love about fighting. And you're right. Like guys like Brock Lesnar, I remember Brandon Vera back in the day being like, he doesn't want to get hit. This was before anybody was saying that. He's like, he doesn't want to get hit.
That pre-Twitter, you could have broke that.
Yeah. But I just remember, but all that stuff to me it's like keeping your adrenaline from dumping in a situation like that. Not going crazy, keep your emotions in check, and knowing how you're going to react to things like that's very difficult. But if you're talking about sports like that, that's probably right. I think when you look at the major sports, I would say that's probably true because we never go beyond it. We marvel at people who hit anywhere from 350 to 400. It's only happened the 400 hitter obviously is like
it's incredibly rare.
Yeah, it's ridiculously rare. So I would say that's probably it.
I marvel at the stamina of things, not just like a marathon runner, but the stamina of a fighter who fights a 5-round championship fight or a boxer that fights a 36-minute championship fight. How do you have that kind of stamina to deal with the pain, to deal with, that's just insane.
Yeah. I guess for me, I still think playing American quarterback at the highest level.
Isn't it crazy? That's crazy.
32 teams, and they can't find 20 good quarterbacks in all of the country, and they are searching and grooming and training and teaching, and they can't. Are there 20 good? There's like 15 okay quarterbacks, and there's like 5 good ones, and there's 10 like decent ones, and that's about it, man.
Yeah.
That is a hard position to play. So that would be one.
To diagnose all the routes.
Yes.
Put the timing on the ball and with a pocket collapsing, and then improvise when needed in that situation, and to keep doing it. It's just
and then
crazy.
at the line of scrimmage to read, make an adjustment. Exactly. It's like
the audibles and everything.
Dude, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So that I'd say is tough. I obviously I don't know how hard it is. I mean, it's pretty hard, but I always have deep admiration for strength athletes, but that's a different scenario. All right, next. Out of all the cities you guys visit for UFC events, what are your favorite places to grab a bite to eat?
Ooh. Man.
Everywhere in Los Angeles,
Los Angeles has very good food.
Los Angeles is the best food city ever.
You're out of your mind.
Ever.
It's not as good as New York City. You're so high.
Well, I grew up.
Food trucks out there.
I mean, I'm constantly in New York.
Well, here's the thing.
I've grown up outside of New York. I love New York food, but high-end New York food is amazing. Every end LA food is absolutely.
I just think that they're better at different things. So, for example, Mexican food in New York City is not as good as LA food, not even close. However, I would say something like Italian food here smokes Italian food in LA. Something like that. Sushi's probably better here. High-end sushi, anyway.
I just say that I lived in Los Angeles for a long time. I worked at the LA Weekly, where Jonathan Gold is a Pulitzer Prize winner on food, which is,
that's tough to
something.
do. Yeah.
And his ability to uncover in Los Angeles so many of these places that are just like, going Inland Empire, just these places within little Korea and things. There is so much out there that you can't, it's very similar. It's almost like you can't compare the two. Because
but imagine
you can only compare them that there's such a vastness of good food. There's so much good food if you just know where to look.
But I'm saying, if you had access to Pete Wells from the New York Times, he's a famous food critic.
True.
And he took you around New York, you might be surprised as
if
well.
you go to Queens,
100%,
that area in Queens where every block is a different country, every corner, it just.
And I've had some really good stuff out in that area.
I just think that they're better at different things.
Yeah. If you're talking about cities that are not like these huge
Houston is good. I had awesome food in Houston.
Good,
Houston is good. Montreal is always very good.
Montreal's good.
Montreal is the answer for non-giant cities.
Yeah.
Montreal's food.
Montreal is just a fantastic.
Let me get in that poutine, right?
Poutine's a little overrated. It's a little overrated. But Montreal's tremendous. Florida can just,
No, it's the worst food in Florida. The worst.
Everyone's like, oh, what about
that claim jumper down there?
Everyone's like, oh, the Cuban food in Miami. You can get better Cuban food somewhere else, man.
I mean,
UFC never goes to Miami, so it's kind of.
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Any big city, Texas, you're going to get great barbecue. You're going to get that sort of side of things.
Austin. I didn't go there, but I mean, obviously, like for the UFC, but I've been there, and that's an amazing place for food.
Yeah, I went to Austin. I didn't go there for work, but or I did go for work, but not for UFC, and that was pretty amazing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I had gone to. Anything smaller city.
Chicken and waffles in Atlanta.
You know who's got good food? And actually, it was funny. Daniel Cormier mentioned on the broadcast. Nashville. Nashville has good food. Yes. Nashville's got really good food. I was surprised. You know what Atlanta's got? Not good food. I know because I went to high school there. Not good food. Everyone's like, what about the soul food? Some of the soul food there is pretty good, obviously. But as a general like food city,
I'll say one. Charlotte. Charlotte is a hit.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've never had a bad meal down there. Everything, and I mean, I know guys down there who know where to go, but we're always going to different places, and all of it is good.
When's UFC going to come to New Haven?
And by the way, people ask this question, so let me ask it to you guys. How would you describe the food in Las Vegas? Okay, here's what I would say. If you're on the Strip, the high-end places
the
are
high
just
end
fine.
is immaculate. When
But
somebody's
like,
got that,
pride themselves on their big chef, refs.
And there are some places outside. There are some places outside of the Strip. Casey and Esther took me to a Japanese place off the Strip that in Vegas. That was tremendous. But generally, it's like I don't know how I would describe the food in Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas is like
there's no character.
It's Dave and Buster's.
Yeah.
I mean, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It's Dave and Buster's.
Without Michael Chandler in the commercial.
Yeah, right. They do have some good eats there for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's not a walkable. See, here's the thing. I think this is one of the reasons why LA is a little bit different. But like a lot of times, like it's why European cities like this, you can just walk around them and you can find good food, and you're just on foot the whole time. That's why like my favorite country for food is Spain. Because bro, you just hop on foot and you can just walk into a million little spots.
And that's what's great, the kind of surrounding ambiance, the surrounding context of where you're at. What's crazy about Vegas is obviously each one of those places is in some kind of greater hotel, casino situation. So you can't escape kind of the faux weirdness of that.
Yeah, and there's also, it's like, oh wow, this burrito is really good at this Mexican place I'm eating at the MGM Grand. Oh look, here comes some drunken bridesmaids. Half of them are missing shoes, and now they're fist fighting. It's like, I don't know, man.
Look, she's holding her hair while she
kind of ruins the meal, yeah. All right, next. Will there ever come a day when you and the panel, two ends, look back and say, man, I really miss talking about Conor McGregor?
Whoa.
I thought about this.
Man.
I think the answer is yes. If there's like a day where there's nothing to talk about.
Depends on how he ends.
Yeah. What I don't want there to be is a sad ending, right, to the story. So that would be one thing. But I suspect that, like, yeah, there will come a time where you're like, man, remember all that time we talked about Conor? Like,
we'll just be talking about PEDs instead. It'll just fill the hole.
who would they calling me?
Grab that, will you?
No, I'll answer it. I should have answered it on the air.
Gotta take this, fellas.
You suck, Dad. Is that you? Click. I don't know.
I could see a situation. Let's just say that his retirement was real right now. He just kind of disappears. It's not going to happen. He's not going to ever disappear from the spotlight. So that's one thing. He's always going to be in the spotlight. He's got a whiskey company. He's always going to be in the ads. He's always going to be doing this stuff. So I feel like he'll still be ubiquitous enough within our culture for us not to be missing him.
Right.
But within the fight game, if this was really it, if you really walked away in a couple of years and for some reason we're plateauing and we can never dredge up that next star, I'm sure you would probably at some point be like, man, remember the good old days when Conor McGregor would have a fight and every outlet would fly to that city to go watch him fight? And we talk about him, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
For once, you have no words? For once? Wow. What do we owe this honor?
Hot dog.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Keep sending those tweets using the hashtag The MMA Beat. There's a lot going on. Enjoy one if you're going to watch it this weekend. Obviously, UFC Philadelphia, which, by the way, the main card kicks off at 7 p.m.
Glorious.
Oh, strawweights, Carolina versus Watterson.
Yeah, there's a bunch of good fights in that card. Sabina Mazo, actually, in honor of Dani Segura, the Colombian queen. She will make her UFC debut on that card.
Yusuf Moraes. Yusuf has been the next guy to probably watch for the African-born guys who've coming up.
Yusuf Sadiq.
Yeah, Sadiq.
Yeah.
He's one guy to keep an eye on too, because he's a featherweight, but I think he's got some.
There's a bunch of good fights on that card. So be sure to tune in for that.